Good morning and welcome back to Coffees with Toffees, the morning show for gamers by gamers. By my little old lonesome here today, as Phage Guy's wrists were hurting, was unable to join me for the show today. But excited to be bringing you some Dota news. It's been a while since we were on Twitch, as we were trying to get a couple of things sorted out with the copyrights and working over on Hitbox. We'll still be there once they get their YouTube upload systems organized a little bit. But as always, my name is Toffees. You can follow me at Toffees_Dota2 for updates on upcoming matches, casting, shows, this, that, knickknacks, paddywhacks, all of that crazy stuff. And I'm glad to be here with you. You can follow the channel. You can catch this on YouTube or SoundCloud. And once I figure out how to make a damn podcast, you can get that too. So plenty of places to find Coffee with Toffees. We're here a couple days a week bringing you everything we can get you in esports. So we call it the short, fast, catch your news before you go to work sort of setup. So that said, we'll jump right into what we most often are talking about, and that is the post-TI roster situations and gaming going forward for Dota right now on the pro scene. Things that have recently come to light since last time that we were on. We talked already about how Moscow 5 was coming back. We talked a little bit about Sith Gaming disbanding. What we didn't talk about yet, but I'm sure you've all heard of, is that fucking Mad, or Mad if you're just TI, has parted ways with his previous team and is creating a team called Terra Firma Esports that is entirely French in nature. So looks like a pretty decent team. I don't know if it'll be as strong as his current setup. I haven't seen them play yet, but it is pretty exciting to see him going out and putting together a national team, especially for a country that is underrepresented in the Dota Jam. That is something that is... you don't see a lot of French folks playing. You don't hear a lot of French hype, so it would be pretty great to see the French scene grow, as long as they don't come into the US East servers and yell at all of us constantly, but we'll see how that goes. I appreciate the help, Way offering to help us set up the podcast, which would be quite nice. What else? Big changes. Sing Sing. That was probably the biggest one. Biggest announcement of the week that I think blew a lot of people's minds, like literally exploding mind value, is that Sing Sing's not with Cloud9, man. We're not sure where the official place that he's going to go and settle in is going to be. He's with Team Tinker right now. Now, word on the street, and this is highly unconfirmed, is that Team Tinker is sort of just a group of, like we said, great Tinker players who are getting together to have some fun, playing the JDL, do their thing. Or iLeague, I'm sorry. But that said, I've heard that some other sponsors, like, say, I think I heard a rumor that Liquid and maybe a couple of other sponsors have been talking to Team Tinker. So the fact of the matter is they put together a big roster of strong folks, and it looks like... Let's see, we were just talking about it over in the Twitch chat. So let me see if the guys on Twitch can give me the roster, since I myself have not had the pleasure of seeing them play just yet. But it is, let's see, according to Way over from HDTV, Podcat, Sing Sing, Quofa, I can never say his name, I think that's right, and Bulba are all on the team, so a pretty strong grouping. I don't know if Excalibur plays with them, Team Tinker. You think he'd have to. I'm pretty sure he does. So that's a pretty strong team, definitely worthy of being looked at. Not if we're completely absent, a fine point. Definitely worth being looked at by some sponsors. So that would be pretty great. Let's see. What else? It is... So there is still unconfirmed reports. We've known it's going to happen for a while. But Kuroki and Puppy, two of the staples of Na'Vi, seem to have been departed, and the new roster seems to include Vanscore and FNG, both great players in their own right, but as a support player myself, who came up in this thing, watching Kuroki, eating up whatever he did, and really learning a lot of my support play style from him, really, really hard to see them leave Na'Vi. It's sort of like when Peyton Manning left the Colts. It's one of those things that just sort of rips your heart out for a little while, and it definitely... So Excalibur is on the team. I have confirmation of that from Way over on the chat. And it's just tough to see. But you know what? On to bigger and better things for these guys. I think that it's really going to work out for them. And, it should be pretty good. So those are the transfers that we have going through. It's kind of a quiet day in terms of Dota that you can watch. The next game that's on any of the match tickers is currently there's a UG versus Narvi game going, and there is going to be First Departure versus Myth Trust in a couple of hours. Other than that, the only other game that I know of that's going to be a decent game to watch today is they're going to be Team Tinker versus Flipside Gaming is going to be on in probably, I think it's about an hour's time or so. If I checked the Twitter and saw Flipside tweet that one out that they had that game. So it's not on any of the match tickers. Yep, live real soon. They said over on Join Dota Red or Beyond the Summit. So even Flipside doesn't know where they're getting televised. All I have is the tweet that they sent to me. So they don't know where they're going, but they're just going to play. And that should be a pretty good game. Flipside was previously Team Leviathan, a team very well represented in sort of the Tier 2 North American scene, but all with members who are NEL guys and big bad voodoo daddies. A little bit crazy, but great players going up against Team Tinker. Should be a very, very strong and pretty exciting match, honestly. So definitely one worth tuning in. If you want to make any bets today, the only place to place a bet, the only game I should say to place a bet right now is on the Dota Lounge for that Myth game that we described, and that is going to be FD Myth. FD First Departure is literally an 81% advantage over Myth. Which is sad because those were teams were both in the qualifiers, and I hate to see them having sort of fallen so far, for lack of a better word, in terms of Myth. But that should be a decent game. If you want to play some bets on it, go ahead. Myth has the potential to beat First Departure. It's a bit of a long shot in my opinion, but at the end of the day, 18%, that's not a bad value for your money. So that's what's going on there as far as the Dota scene is concerned. Let's pop right back out and double check a couple of things. So there is a great article if you guys want to go over to joindota.com. It was written by Mahacton. It's called 122 the North American Scene, and it talks a lot about what's happening to the North American scene post TI, and I think it's a pretty good insightful article on the idea that the game has changed out a lot. And they talked to the captain of Team Ice about this and sort of how North American Dota has been developing. And I think that everybody can see that is that prior to this TI, right, if you had said North American Dota, people actually guffawed. Like, they didn't laugh, they didn't scoff, they guffawed visibly and verbally a guffaw. And that's something you don't hear a lot nowadays. So it meant that people were fairly disdainful of it. Now that said, it is something that has changed tragically. EG, for instance, is now one of the greatest teams in the world. They came in third at the TI, recognized as a phenomenal competitor in the scene, especially with the dissolution of teams like Navi. EG really has taken on a primary role, and that's a North American team. We've got emergences of the new team Liquid, we've got Narvi, we've got the up-and-coming SNA. So there's a lot of these teams that have sort of just grown from the grassroots organizations, which is really great. And the one thing that I think North America has done much better in the last 2 years, and I think most people will agree, is develop those grassroots groups. And that is something that is really helping us out. So that said, all of that is so that you can start supporting grassroots, right? And you can do that by the SECS, the Sunday Evening Cup Series. That comes back this weekend on Sunday. The Amateur Dota 2 League is in its finals. The SEVO League is in full swing for North American teams, and they are playing. They're about halfway through their season right now. JDL is going on as we speak, and these are all grassroots places where you can support the NA development, and I encourage you to do so. The Canada Dota 2 League starts up, the qualifiers this week as well. Countless teams, games that are just developing and really focusing on North America. So a great scene to support, as it's really the only one that I know of that's kind of starting to blow right now, as far other than Korea. Korea's in full swing, and that's about it. So that's something I want to encourage you guys. I'm off my soapbox. I'm off my support amateurs esports in the States. And we'll jump over to a couple of quick one more announcement that you guys probably have already heard, but ESL New York was announced for $100,000 prize pool. They're going to have 8 of the top Dota 2 teams there. It's going to be a pretty massive event. It's going to be the 9th and the 10th of October. So if you weren't already planning on going, go. It is a hop, skip, and a jump from my front door, as well as I think Kodo's probably going to be there and a couple of other guys who are personalities in the area. I would not be surprised to see them show up. So it should be a pretty good time, as well as obviously the teams. The question is, who's going to be there and how much fun is it going to be? And I can guarantee it'll be a good time. ESL always with some decent production value. Well, I guess I should rephrase that. Up until recently, ESL known for some phenomenal production value. Not such great production value a couple of days ago. A lot of folks got really angry at them, but let's be honest, that will pass, and they are known for stepping up and doing what they need to do. So ESL, and that is sort of it for Dota news today. There's not a whole lot else going on in the scene. That's why right now, while things are slow, we're doing 3 days a week on the show, just because I literally cannot find enough Dota news to do a daily show for you guys. That said, let's jump over to a bit of overall esports news. There is ESL 1 Cologne to CSGO Championship going strong right now. If you're into CSGO, here's what you need to know, that the rankings are currently, let's see here, Group A, on top of Group A is Epsilon, on top of Group B is LDLC, on top of Group C is Virtuous Pro, and Group D is Dignitas. Now, the games have just started, so right now some of these teams have only played 1 or 2 games. It's sort of the beginning of TI, round robin, getting to know everything, but that is going on today. A whole bunch of games for day 2. You can definitely tune into that over on the ESL 1 Twitch channel for CSGO. It's been a pretty good tournament so far, and I expect it to continue being an excellent tournament. So that's some video game news for you. Other stuff, the Warlords of Draenor, the World of Warcraft expansion has been announced for anybody who plays that or used to play that or nostalgically wants to remember a time when you used to stay up all night and play that. It is coming out on the 11th, I believe, of November. So that's going to be right around the corner. And obviously, one of the biggest games ever made, worth mentioning for that, if for nothing else. So that is going to be on its way out right now. Let's see, other aspects, not a lot in the way of other competitive stuff that I found today when I was looking for other competitive results for gaming. Other video game news that is interesting, though, is that Sony has made a press release saying they in no way feel like they need exclusive rights on the next Tomb Raider. So they are so confident, Sony, in the sales of their machines, which has beaten Xbox the last 7 months running, that they don't even need exclusive rights on staple games that basically define their franchise. And that's a pretty bold statement by them. But as a result, the new Tomb Raider will come out on Xbox One. So for all of you who have the Xbox One, a little bit of a saving grace there. There were announcements that the next Assassin's Creed will have microtransactions, but of course, promises that it won't affect the gameplay, and that should be pretty interesting. And finally, Crytek released another news release today that said, we don't think that we're not porting to PC. Rise, Son of Rome, their game, is not going to PC because we want to just make money, which is bull because the game sucks, and the only reason you would take it to PC is if you wanted to make money. So there's your video game news for the time being today. And last but not least, we'll run through the real world stuff because you got to know. Unfortunately, it's always negative, so it seems, but we'll run through them one after another for you real quick. The Missouri teen shooting. Now, this is an interesting one. I haven't been on for a couple of days, so you may not have caught on to what's happening. But in Missouri, a teen was shot by a police officer. The police officer was not identified yet. Someone did, however, see the police officer chase him from the car and shoot him while he was laying on the ground with his hands in the air. And that's a pretty big deal. It's resulted in riots in Missouri, tear gas being used on crowds, dispersions, and it all started with a peaceful candlelight vigil the night after the shooting. When the police showed up to keep an eye on it, they began throwing things at the cars, and it just escalated from there. So the crowds have been huge. They've been chanting for justice, and it has come to the point where there are literally police guards, riot gear. It looks like a mob scene out there, and the tensions are sort of relaxing. There was no crazy riots last night, and this is the first time since Michael Brown, the young man who was killed almost 4 days ago, if I remember correctly, that there hasn't been overnight violence. So nice to see things settling down a little bit there. Second story, in Iraq, the Iraqi prime minister has given up fighting to keep his post, clearing the way for a new leader that many hope can mend the sectarian divisions that are there. So Iraq having a lot of issues with internal fighting right now. They're battling Sunni fighters with the so-called Islamic State, and they're the guys who used to call themselves ISIS, basically. So they're fighting a political on one side and then an actual physical fight on the other, and hoping to get a new prime minister that can at least maybe come from the middle ground a little bit. But what that does mean is it means that the organization ISIS, which essentially rolled into Iraq and started taking over cities, now has a bit of a foothold and may get some political basis if they have a pundit who gets into office that has at least some willingness to work with them on a bipartisan system. So interesting situation. Third story, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, Robin Williams committed suicide this week. They found him sitting cross-legged on the floor of his home with a belt wrapped around his neck. Let's see, Robin Williams, he was sober, but he was struggling with depression, anxiety, and early stages of Parkinson's when he died. His widow said yesterday that it was the diagnosis of the progressive illness was an additional fear and burden in his life. So long story short, all we know is it was death by hanging. We know that he was a hilarious comedian, that a heartwarming actor, and a real travesty that he took his own life. Unfortunate. Hard to say too much else about it other than I grew up on his Aladdin and his Hook and movies like that, and will always remember those as movies that I absolutely loved. Celine Dion is a story for some reason that I won't understand. I guess, she's taking a break from her music career indefinitely. Part of that is because her husband does have cancer, so she's going to be focusing on staying with him. But this is to keep in mind that Celine Dion, so she's canceled her Las Vegas shows and a tour that she has scheduled in Asia. Celine Dion is the woman who Caesars built a stadium for. It's Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, and they built her a legit stadium so that she could do her performances there. And now she is retiring from those performances. She's done it for a while. She's lived out her contract, but she was making a copious amount of money and is stepping back because she's got enough and her 72-year-old husband is sick. Finally, number 5, the baseball commissioner, after 22 years with Bud Selig in charge of Major League Baseball, they didn't look far for his replacement. They tapped his right-hand man and longtime executive of the league, Rob Manfred, as the next commissioner. Owners of the 30 leagues elected yesterday, and Manfred is the 10th commissioner in MLB history, so a new MLB commissioner for the first time in a long time. Maybe he can actually get baseball to become interesting again, because I'll tell you what, I can't sit around for 2 to 3 hours every single night and watch a 7-game series. So Mr. Manfred, make it a 3-game series, and I guarantee you a new fan. That said, that is essentially our news for today. We don't have anything else really massive for you. Games that have been going on or interesting final or results that you might be interested. Quick spoiler alert for you here if you're going to go watch any games from yesterday on replay. But Sneaking Assassins ties Isurus Gaming. What else was there? First Departure beats Aero Gaming 3-0, so that was a pretty big win for them. Power Rangers is 1-0 over Special. We've got Narvi and Union going head-to-head. Union taking that first game off of them. And really, those are the major games from yesterday. And like I said, not a whole lot going on at the moment in the post-TI doldrum, but they are starting to amp up, and I guarantee they're going to start showing up big and bad, and we'll be here to cover it when it does. That said, that's all that I have for you. Normally I'd play some music for you out, but I can't risk having the copyrights hit us, so I will literally just cut the stream and then come back with some music right afterwards. That way I can start working the highlight and upload the YouTube and the SoundCloud if you need to listen to it at work. Guys, we appreciate you being here for the morning show today. If you haven't already followed the stream, please follow it. Follow me on Twitter so that you know if we decide to make the move to Hitbox once they update the software. And that's pretty much all that I've got for you today. So once again, thank you. And as always, Toffees out. Have a great morning.